Get it right up in it. Okay, we made it, dude.
We made it.
We made it. I know, this whole production takes
A race to the finish, but we're there.
Yeah. You got it?
Good to go.
All right, you're good. You grew up in Pasadena, right?
Born and raised, Pasadena, Sierra Madre.
And let me see, when we met, it was through jiu-jitsu.
We met through jiu-jitsu. We actually met through some of your competitors at the Gracie Nationals.
Oh, really?
Kirk Lines.
Oh, it's Kirk.
Well, yeah, because Kirk was competing, and he and I were in the same age bracket. And so we were hanging out hour after hour after hour in the bullpen. Remember how slow that day moved. Mm-hmm. And then he had the longest match that day.
Oh, yeah, it was like the close to 1 hour special.
Yeah.
Or just shy of an hour.
And I went over and I was shouting at him, and him and I had food in common.
Mm-hmm. That's right, because he was he is a chef. I guess he's still a chef. You were a chef, not practicing at this time.
Not at this time. I left commercial kitchens, but I was Here,
put that a little closer to you.
But I was
you can bring it to you. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I cooked professionally for 30 years.
You were cooking at some of the hot spots like Spago's and Beverly Hills.
Spago, Peninsula Beverly Hills, Kitchen for Exploring Foods, Parkway Grill over in Pasadena. Yeah, I cooked in a lot of fun places.
So locally, it was always local?
All Los Angeles, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that happened to be the hot spot for a lot of those, I don't know, those executive type of, are those even called executive like dining or fine dining?
Fine dining, fine dining is what it is what that's called.
How did you get into cooking?
You know what? I was very young. My parents are both extraordinary cooks. They both cook professionally to put themselves through their respective educations. My mom had a small catering business when we were growing up. She threw me in a suit when I was very young and had me bussing tables, because what's cuter than a kid in a tuxedo bussing tables?
So she had her own catering business?
Yeah, she had a small catering business. That worked out of the church and ladies' functions and whatever. And I happened to take an interest, and I was one of these kids that I learned very young that I could manipulate flavor, texture, and smell very easily. I could operate on that palate very, very naturally. And, I was getting paid to cook by age 9. It was...
Wow. So you were getting paid at 9?
Yeah.
Just for food and everything? And you were already cooking. You weren't just bussing tables. You were already...
Yeah, I was doing prep. I mean, it was for my mom, but yeah, by, 9, 10, 11, I was making, meatballs and assembling lasagnas for $200 and $300 at a pop. And I just fell in love. I fell in love very, very young.
Now, did you go to any formal training?
After I'd been cooking professionally about 15 years, I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Pasadena in 2001.
Okay.
And graduated through there, and it was through there that I got my job at Spago. I showed up to work one day, or I showed up at school one day, and my instructor told me that the next day I needed to leave class half an hour early and bring an extra set of whites, because I started at Spago the next day.
Really? So they helped you find that job?
I didn't apply for that job. I didn't interview for that job. I showed up, I worked a day, and that evening they offered me the job.
And it was probably one of your instructors or
it was my hot foods instructor, yeah.
Okay.
Who set it up? Who said, basically called, Thomas Boyce, who was the executive chef at the time, and said, I got a guy for you. Yeah. Chef Altieri, and she was great. She was a hot foods instructor, right at the tail end of the program, and she just made the call and got me in there. It was really great.
Do you think you excelled at it because you loved it so much? And you pretty much, it sounds like you already had a background of knowing food combinations, spices, and everything, working with your mom.
Right. No, that's exactly what it's. I had a natural affinity for it. I was, cooking all the way through high school and everything else. You want to blow away your stoner buddies, ditch high school, right?
Right.
Go home, make lobster manicotti from scratch, like ricotta, pasta, and all. You want to blow away a stoner, make cheese right in front of them. You just made what? I made cheese.
You used to make cheese?
Yeah, I still do.
You still make your own cheese?
Yeah, I make a couple different types of cheeses.
See, and here I am thinking I'm the man because I just started brewing my own kombucha.
Nice.
Now, I thought years ago, my buddy, and it happened to be in Pasadena as well, but one of my buddies, because he saw me drinking kombucha, and he's like, dude, you can make your own. And I was like, oh, really? That sounds cool. That sounds cool. And he's like, yeah, you get a SCOBY. I'm like, a what? A SCOBY. That's the bacteria, and that's where it ferments up, and blah, blah, A, B, C, D. He told me the process, and then I replied, or I could just go to the grocery store and buy it. It sounded like too much of a hassle. However, fast forward years later, here I am. I've really grown attached to kombucha. The first time I ever tried, I was offended by the taste because I saw mango, and I'm thinking traditional mango iced tea because I love tea. I bring it back to the office. I pop it open. I drink it. It has that vinegar that fermented. Oh, holy hell. This thing was horrible. It was awful. So then years later, one of my jiu-jitsu friends, he's all, hey, let's run to the store. Let's grab some. I was like, all right, cool. And then he's shopping for kombuchas. He said, you ever try this? I'm like, I hate that stuff. I said, but you know what? It seems healthy. Let me go ahead and give it another shot. And sure enough, it worked out that time. So I think it was my mental. I was expecting, there was an expectation. It's not going to taste like the iced tea. It's going to have this fermented.
Right.
So now it's gotten to the point where it's like horseradish, which is another thing I came around on. Now I want it raw. I want the hardcore, like I want to make my face squint, Right. And I'm drinking so much of it that I got, as we speak right now, I have my first batch of kombucha brewing. It's like a gallon container, which is not going to last long. The wife, she was telling me, well, a gallon, I mean, that's cool, but we're going to go through that. I'm like, I know. But if this works out, we'll get another jar and we'll start brewing 2 gallons. But we're talking about a 2-week fermentation cycle. There's the initial, and then it goes to the flavoring, the secondary fermentation.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see how it works. But, I mean...
what's going to happen is you're going to end up nerding out, and you're going to have, like, this crazy rotation, and you're going to have, 2 gallons at any given stage of the thing.
Yeah.
And what my experience was the day that one of the gallon jars exploded in a closet where I was doing the second fermentation.
Oh, no.
And I had to clean that up. Yeah, we started going back to the store for the kombucha. It was a little much for me.
I've read about that. It's like you got to be, especially with glass bottles. They were saying that if you're a beginner, do it with plastic bottles. But yeah, that's a great reminder. On the secondary fermentation is when all the magic happens, right? So every day you just got to bleed them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, your whole jar exploded?
My gallon jar exploded. It was gnarly.
So on that stage, like right now I got a cheesecloth on top of it. So it's the secondary, you have to seal it?
Yeah, I had sealed it, and I hadn't put it in liter jars. I had a bunch of lock top jars that I was going to put it in, but I'm like, I'm just going to do the secondary fermentation in this gallon jar, and I sealed it up tight, threw a rubber band on it.
Oh man, that's gonna be my worst nightmare.
2 or 3 days later, it popped in the closet.
Oh, that's what the internet told me. About 3 days, like every 3 days, you wanna bleed it.
Right.
So I'm like, man, forget that. I'm gonna go every day. I don't want that happening. I don't want glass shards, all these explosives. But yeah, so that's a great reminder. Every day, bleed them a little. The point is how you can enjoy the process and making your cheese. I didn't know you made cheese.
Yeah, well, when I was real young, somebody had handed me. I was, kind of an active kid, and somebody handed me this jar, and so told me to start shaking it. And it was like, it had like 3 inches of like heavy cream in it. I started shaking it, and after a while, it stopped shaking. And they're like, yeah, keep shaking it. Started shaking it more and more and more and more. And finally, it loosened up a little bit, and it started going cha-chunk, cha-chunk, cha-chunk. And, I took it, and they opened it up and poured off some of the liquid. And down there at the bottom, and they scooped some out, and it was butter. I had just made butter.
Really?
Yeah, it's just heavy cream. That's it. You shake like churned cream. That's butter. And so now my like 6-year-old mind went because butter came in bricks, right? Butter came in blocks. Like
Right.
butter comes in sticks. That's my understanding of butter. It comes wrapped in paper in the box. That's how butter comes. I didn't. What do you mean you can make butter? So as soon as I learned, okay, so you can make butter, comes the next immediate question is, well, if you can make butter, what else can you make? The answer was everything. I was in love. Like challenge accepted. Like what do you can make literally everything. Like everything you've ever eaten, you can make.
Yeah, see that's us city folk. Growing up in the city, you were a little ahead of the curve. You had an advanced mind, obviously, because here we are speaking. I'm mid-40s, and wait, you make butter? You can make? It's so amazing to me.
Right.
Where people out there in Idaho or living in the dairy farm somewhere, oh yeah, we make our own every day. Nothing big about that, But and then the cheese. What kind of cheese?
I make ricotta. I've made ricotta's super easy.
Really?
Yeah.
How long does that take? I mean,
20 minutes.
20 minutes to make a
20
cheese?
minutes to make cheese. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How about mozzarella? Same thing?
I've made my own mozzarella. That's a little bit longer of a process, but it's a lot of fun. You get the curds, and you can make you get some rennet, just like making beer, and you create. You cook it down. You make the curds, and then in a bowl of warm water, you start stretching it, and you make those strands like string cheese. You make it by stretching it and folding it and stretching it and folding it.
Oh,
and stretching it. Yeah.
dude, this is gonna be like a new thing.
Oh, now you're a YouTube DIYer. You will love it.
Oh yeah, In fact, speaking of YouTube DIY, did you ever read the story? There was a story I saw. This woman, she was a mother of I think she had 3 kids, 2 kids, something like that. But she built her own house using YouTube instructionals.
Oh, right. I saw that.
People, all they really have to do, any problem, they just YouTube it at this point.
Right.
Because there's such a vast amount of videos, information that's been converted to video to where you can get a video instructional on virtually anything.
So I fix my Mercedes. Every time there's
Really?
something wrong with it, I just YouTube it and fix it. I change my own brakes. Jack it up, rotors, drums, y todo.
Yeah, and then you go to Amazon, you plug in the year model of your car, and then it'll tell you all the parts for that car.
Yep.
And oh man, it's so much easier than the old days of the Chief Auto Parts. Remember Chief Auto Parts?
Oh yeah.
And where you have to look through the book, find the fuse,
Right.
and all
Get
that
the
stuff.
giant manual of
Right.
your car.
Yeah.
And try and figure out how to
The
do it.
Chiltons.
Yeah.
Those Chiltons. Oh man, I remember every time I'd get a new car or a friend would get a car. Oh, you got to get a Chilton. So we get that Chilton manual, and then it was kind of cool looking at the illustrations and learning, through that. But yeah, man, YouTube's a game changer. Game changer.
It really is.
Technology's great, man. It's the answer.
Oh, for sure.
But going back, I'm gonna I'm gonna YouTube how to make my own cheese.
Yeah.
And make my own pizza. Have you been trying? Cauliflower is really big right now.
Cauliflower's big. Look, yeah, they're what's it? The cauliflower pizza crust is the one that's making the rounds on the Facebooks right now.
Yeah. Oh, it seems like you're not feeling the cauliflower movement.
There's something. If you can't eat it, don't eat it. Okay, like not every workaround is valid. Like I'm all about the zoodles. Like I get it.
What's a zoodle?
That's the zucchini, and you put it through like the
Oh,
spiralizer.
right. Yeah, that's
and so
good.
you get like zoodles.
Okay.
Like I get it when I was doing. I did raw vegan for a while. I took a 90-day raw vegan challenge, and I was just doing zoodles, and I made my own little pesto and stuff. Raw vegan pesto, and and I was into the zoodle. But if you can't eat it, then don't eat it. Don't look for a way. And it's this man's opinion. If you can't eat it, then don't eat it. Don't look for like a cauliflower way to go about eating it. Like don't, and it's funny because I was married to, a woman who didn't eat sugar or flour.
Okay.
Pescatarian, which means she only ate fish, and no sugar and no flour. And so, I mean, I used to look for like her birthday and Valentine's Day and Mother's Day and stuff. I would like look for like cool, crazy workarounds so she could have desserts, you know, a couple times a year, and made something real special for her. But
What were some of those alternatives though? Like almond flour, right?
yeah,
That's
that's
a good one.
well, it was. I got into. I made black bean chocolate cake. You know, where instead of there's no flours, you use black beans and cocoa powder, and I used alternative sweeteners, and it actually kind of came out great. It was.
Yeah. No, some of the stuff like I'm drinking the cauliflower Kool-Aid because I've always liked cauliflower mashed potatoes. And I like it because, going back to jujitsu, we have weight divisions. And I figured I do look the other way. If there are little cheats that I can do and still indulge, like, man, I'm going to get a whole lot of flack for this, but I love veggie dogs. It's like, because I love hot dogs. Like, growing up, I would never go to a place to order a hot dog only because I only believe you can only eat minimum of 4 hot dogs at a time. It's like,
Well, right.
So I'm not going to pay the price of a hamburger for 1 hot dog because I just eat too many of them. So fast forward into adult life, I'm like, wait a minute, they have veggie dogs? Oh, man. And I can just indulge and eat all the veggie dogs I want and not feel, I mean, it's still processed and all that. But again, it's one of those cheats.
Right.
To where, and then the cauliflower pizza, I was in Atlanta, my best friend, he made me some cauliflower pizza. It was amazing.
Was
good.
it?
And the California Pizza Kitchen offers it too. So I just love pizza. And if I can cut down a little bit on that bread,
right,
to hit some of my, I have some fitness goals I want to hit. And a lot of it is bread. Man, bread is just so good. So anytime I can cut it out, I feel like it's a little victory.
For sure. I totally get it, but
It feels wrong.
It
feels
not
wrong.
a fan. I'm like, just don't eat it. I think it's because my mom and God love her. She tried so many things, and we grew up pretty poor. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, and she was always trying to make fancier food with what we had, and there were some pretty special nights, and there were some pretty
bummer nights,
spectacular failures.
Oh no!
What's
what's one of them?
Oh my God! What was she trying to do? There wasn't much in the house, so she made mac and cheese and dumped a can of tuna in there for a little bit of extra protein, and then a couple, like 2 cups of whole wheat flour, just trying to throw some bulk in it. There were 6 of us, and it was
tuna mac and cheese and
tuna
flour.
mac and cheese with whole wheat flour. Oh, you could have spackled the walls with this stuff. I mean, it was
right.
It was wallpaper paste. It was rough. It was a rough night.
So okay, so you're working. You're doing well as a cook,
right,
and a chef, and so you're getting work, and you get to go to these pretty much social elite type of restaurants, and then at some point, it seems like that high life, the high society, kind of led you down a darker path, right?
Right. I working in restaurants, particularly young. I got involved with the stuff that people in restaurants are doing, and I got into drugs and alcohol pretty hard, and had absolutely flamed out by 24. I mean, flamed out. I was homeless for a period of time. I had a terminal cocaine addiction, and absolutely could not stop drinking. I spent a time homeless, and in 1999, I had absolutely hit bottom. I could not stop drinking. I could not stop doing cocaine. I would not have survived 1999. And with a full-time job, like with a full-time job and a part-time job, like totally homeless, couldn't keep it together, like couldn't figure out how to not spend every dime on drugs and alcohol.
So at what point did you think, I'm gonna go down this road, I'm gonna try that? What made you even consider that lane?
You know what? Was
it fun or was it stressful?
I'd been fixing for a long time. I'd been fixing. I didn't feel like other kids felt. I didn't look the way other kids looked. I wasn't doing stuff that other kids were doing. And I always felt like my insides didn't match your outsides, and I would look at your outsides and I would judge my insides, and I couldn't figure out how to like make lasting relationships. I couldn't figure out how to not be like in fear all the time, and from a very young age, I discovered food. I found out that the food kind of quieted, ice cream, kind of candy, sugar, quieted that part of my head. I found, later that nicotine and caffeine, did the same things to some extent. I found girls and all sorts of proxies for girls, as we're growing up, and I found that turned the volume down on that stuff. Thank God, 14, 15 years old, I found alcohol, and alcohol was just the most efficient thing. And it allowed me to feel just kind of normal. It wasn't about the party. It wasn't about going crazy. It wasn't about, calming stress. For me, it was about, I would take a couple of drinks and finally feel like I fit in my own skin. Finally felt like somewhere between 3 and 5 drinks, like I was okay. I was just like everybody else. The problem is that type of solution will only carry you so far. Consumption increases, your tolerance increases. That voice inside my head that, told me I was a piece of crap and, not good enough to be in the places I was in, not, good enough to have, friends and have people in my life, have a future. At some point, that voice, the alcohol stopped turning the volume down on that voice. And so now, drunk or sober, high or straight, that's what was going on. Like that voice was going on. And now I just had this other stuff to compete with. Now I couldn't stop drinking. I was drinking every day on the job. I was doing cocaine every day on the job. And I felt like a piece of shit all the time.
So backing up, it started with alcohol in your teenage years. You were a mid-teenager.
Yeah, I was a teenager. Yeah,
and
high school.
Oh, okay. And then it wasn't until you got introduced to the harder stuff, like the cocaine, until you were outside of high school.
It may have actually even been my 21st birthday that I got introduced to cocaine. Yeah, it may,
And you were already working.
Oh, and I was already working, and I was already
very
working.
Accessible.
Yeah, it was accessible, and it was easy, and and nobody cared. Do your job. Nobody cares. Put out the food. Make it right, make it nice, and nobody cares. Look, granted they're all bosses. Like, look, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know about it. But do whatever you got to do to make it right. And you come through the night solid. We're good.
It got to the point where you said you were homeless.
Right.
So you were living out your car. And
I was living in an old K5 Chevy Blazer, right? And then they towed that away. And then I spent some time.
You told me about that. You worked the system, like you parked it in a parking.
Oh my
garage.
God! I parked that thing.
And you did it all. That was by design.
Yeah, because it was a big lifted K5, and you couldn't. And I wedged it downstairs in a parking structure in Pasadena, and they couldn't like lift it. They couldn't get it out, and they kept like night after night. They'd put, and I was sleeping in it, and they'd put like these notes on it. We're gonna tow your car. We're gonna tow your car. We're gonna tow your car. I'm like, I dare you. I double
It
dog
became,
dare you.
It became a challenge.
Tow it, bitch. You know, you can't lift this thing. You can't put it on a regular tow truck. You couldn't get a regular tow truck down into this parking garage anyway. What are you gonna do? And I parked it right under one of the cement support beams. You know, so it had like
Take away even more
inch clearance. You know, like what are you gonna do? Finally, one day they sprayed like nitrogen on the U joints and snapped the U joints and just dragged it out.
Really? So they broke down the U joints on the car.
Yeah.
To lower it.
Yeah. Well, just to make it all freewheeled.
Oh, okay.
Just to make it all freewheeled.
Oh, and then
then you know now all the because I'd like locked it in 4-wheel drive and you know like you couldn't. It was just like this giant thing that you couldn't budge and you couldn't lift and you couldn't do anything with.
Now you weren't in the car.
No. They towed it when I was at work. You know, and I came back and it was gone. And I asked the attendant, I'm like, so how'd they do it? And they go, yeah, they broke the U joints. And
the attendant knew you, so you guys knew each other.
Yeah. Because he kept warning me because they're gonna tow that thing sooner or later. They're gonna figure it out. And I'm like, well, as soon as they figure it out, then I'll worry about it then. You know, and so I asked him like, how'd they do it? And he goes, yeah, they broke the U joints, dropped the drive shaft out of it, and just dragged it out. Just put it on a winch and just dragged it out.
Wow.
So
all your belongings are in the car?
Yeah, I mean, for, what I had, it was a couple bags of clothes and, a bunch of...
No TV set or PlayStation or
No.
anything?
No, that was not my jam.
So now you're truly homeless now. Like there went your home.
Oh yeah.
So there are levels to this homeless game.
Yeah, there's levels, and then it was an alley in Pasadena. It was an alley behind a dumpster, and that was, I had a girl who put up with my crap, on again, off again, but there was, and I will say this, I will qualify this. It was voluntary homelessness. My parents lived in Pasadena. I just couldn't face them. I mean, that's the bottom line. I was ashamed of myself. I was ashamed of my situation. I was ashamed that I had come this far. I felt like a loser and a total disappointment to them. So I mean, I'll even say, it was total. At any moment, I could have gone home, and and kind of squared things with mom and pops. My ego wouldn't let me do it. My pride wouldn't let me do it. Like I couldn't do it. So I mean, yes, I was homeless, but that's kind of saying that is kind of romantic. Is kind of romanticizing my actual situation. I was voluntarily homeless.
Okay.
I mean, and which was just as miserable. I mean, I was sick. I was isolated. You
were in your own personal hell mentally as well.
That's what was going on.
Inhibited you from the shelter of loved ones. And I'm sure you had friends that, you didn't want to be a burden to as well. So there is an emotional responsibility in hell to deal and cope with that.
For sure. Yeah, no, my friends were just, were like watched my slide and just couldn't believe it, and just, and every time they were like, oh, look, this guy's got to like figure this out sooner or later. And then I would just take another dive and it would just get worse, and by 24, it was all over.
So you're homeless, you're sleeping in an alley, you're living behind a dumpster.
Right.
At what point does it kind of kick in for you?
You know what? I got tricked. I got tricked is what happened. I got tricked. The day that I got sober, July 25th, 1999, the day I got sober, was like the day before was not like the worst day, of my life. It wasn't like, this, and then I hit this dramatic bottom and had this amazing realization and realized there was so much more to life and, I needed help or whatever. Like, that's not my story. What happened was, I was, drinking out of dumpsters, and somebody pointed up into up some stairs, up a back alley, and they said, if you go in there, they got free donuts and coffee. I'm like, well, what do they got going on in there? And they said, it's an AA meeting. And I said, what's AA? And they said, yeah, don't even worry about that.
Just go get some donuts.
Go get some donuts, and so I was a homeless guy with a hustle, and I found out in that first meeting that, that if I raised my hand and said my name, and there was all the coffee, cigarettes, and donuts that I could eat, and I got introduced to 12-step recovery that day, and it was a little while before I was kind of on board with it. I like I said, I was a homeless guy with a hustle, so whatever they were doing, I was just trying to walk and talk like a duck real quick, trying to figure out what was going on. My biggest fear is that they were going to find out that I wasn't like them.
You were just there for the donuts, and I'm better than you guys.
Right. And they saw me coming a mile off, and they were kind as hell to me. They were really, really kind, and they allowed me to believe that I was getting over on them, and they kind of turned away as I'm like hoarding donuts and Hostess fruit pies, and they gave me kind of a safe place to detox, and I went through some real dark days in those early days. If you've never experienced unsupervised, unmedicated, acute alcoholic detox, I highly recommend it, man. I mean, there is nothing that will give you an appreciation for the life you currently have quite like it. I seized and I shook and I hallucinated and I vomited for days and days and days and days.
Really?
It was gnarly.
So your body was calling for that alcohol. That fix.
Alcoholic detox will kill you. I mean, you seize, your heart stops. Heroin and shit, they lock you in a rubber room, let you bounce off the walls. Like heroin detox won't kill you. You'll wish you were dead. Mm-hmm. No, but it's all the alcohol, the Suboxone and Subutex and all those. You'll die. Like you do not just stop. Once you've crossed certain thresholds with that, you don't just stop drinking cold turkey and get to keep your heartbeat, man. It doesn't work. What happened was I was getting over on these guys, quote unquote. And I was eating all these Hostess fruit pies. They get this big basket of Hostess fruit pies, full from the food bank or whatever. And I was eating these things hand over fist, right? And because I could just hang out there all day. There was always coffee. There was always someone I could bum a cigarette from.
Someone to talk to.
Talk to. And I was just eating these Hostess fruit pies. And I found out later that it was the sugar and the lard in these things that was keeping me stabilized. And it might as well have been an IV. Right. And,
really?
And I didn't know that. And they knew that I didn't know that. And they just...
Really? So there's actually a bit of a science to that,
the
junk food?
Back in the day when guys would go into, so they call it a delirium tremens, and you go into alcoholic detox and you start shaking and you seize, and they would pour Caro syrup down people's throats. Like that was like the wisdom of the day. It's the sugar, it's the glucose,
because that's how alcohol digests.
That's right? How 3 steps into the metabolic process, alcohol and sugar are indistinguishable, right? And so they would pour like Caro syrup or molasses or whatever down your throat, because they didn't understand necessarily the science, but they knew that, you wouldn't die if they poured a bunch of corn syrup into you,
Wow. Interesting.
And so, so they, it was all the sugar and the fat in those, sugar and the lard and all the garbage in those fruit pies that basically regulated my system and allowed me to, really suffer through a detox, but not die of it.
So was drinking pretty much cold turkey?
It all went. The only thing I kept doing was smoking, and I smoked.
So cocaine, alcohol was all pretty much that date?
Well, because they were all, everybody in this room, they were talking about being sober. They were talking about being clean, and I just didn't want to get found out and thrown out. So I was, one guy, said he drank, and I'm like, you can't say that in here. They'll toss you out, because I had no idea. And he was like, no, they're cool. You just, you start your time over whatever. And it was just a weird thing for me. And I'm grateful you can only hear what you can hear, and you can only have the experience that you have. And I'm really grateful that I didn't understand that, because if I understood that if I could go drink during the day and then come back there and still receive kind treatment from people, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
Right.
The God's honest truth is I wouldn't have survived 1999. I would have died.
And now you were working throughout this whole thing. So you still had just enough money in your pocket to get yourself in trouble.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I was, I was drinking, I was spending every dime on alcohol.
Alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it just flows, man. It just flows. So, and alcohol was my big gig, man. Alcohol was my big gig, and when it was my money, and my money was, and I wasn't sharing, my money bought Jack Daniels. Yeah, cocaine made a party, made any day a party, but, cocaine, the great thing about cocaine is cocaine is just the great accelerant. I probably could have kept drinking like that for another 30 years. The cocaine just like sped the end, I started doing cocaine and I just like catapulted to the ground. Like it was bad.
Wow.
It was just such a short, it felt like it was just such a short time. Once I started getting into the powders and the psychotropics and the psychedelics, and once I started getting into that, it just, the end was so fast, because everything just accelerated at that point.
So would you say that because of the system, now there was a new diversion in your alcoholism and your drug use is now unhealthy foods? Was that ever an issue?
You know what? You see foods are where people start, because that's comfort. When you're a kid,
when you were a kid, you were saying,
and it's comfort. And as a sober guy, yeah, I still go for tacos, man. I still go
tacos
for
aren't
foods.
unhealthy.
I still go for right.
Tacos. You watch your mouth there.
You just watch it there, buddy.
Right.
No, but we go for food, and I watch my illness. Kind of go backstage and change costumes and come back out, and now it's food, and now it's back to, because I know alcohol will kill me, so we're not messing around with the beverages anymore.
Right.
But what you like is Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, those are amazing.
And you like those a lot.
Yeah.
And those are real easy to get, to get way off the beam on. And so since I've been sober, my weight had been an issue, until I discovered jiu-jitsu. And then suddenly, I get into jiu-jitsu. A year later, I dropped 100 pounds. And
yeah, so explain that, because that was, to me, when we first met, that's why I love this guy, because your story is how tall are you?
5'6".
5'6". But
5'5".
you were pushing 300 pounds.
Yeah, 285.
At 5'6",
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight for your body to be maintaining.
Yeah.
To pump your blood, to do anything of any kind of athletic maneuver, on your joints, your ligaments, and all that. But when I met you, you were telling me how you found jiu-jitsu.
Right.
But then you challenged yourself in a very unique way that I've never heard anyone challenge themselves.
Yeah, after I got into jiu-jitsu with my son. My son was 4, and we checked out this community jiu-jitsu class in Pasadena, and so I threw him out on the mats with the kids, and they're doing their little thing, and one of the parents comes over to me and asks me if I was going to take the adult class, and I'm like, I'm a 285-pound chain-smoking chef. No, no, I will not be taking the adult class, but thanks, and so, and then they ask, so that's cool. So when he's a 15-year-old black belt and you think he should clean his room and he thinks you should piss up a rope, what exactly do you intend to do about that?
Yeah, what do you have to offer?
Right. And I go, okay, well, maybe one class, one class will be cool. And so I took a class and I got tied in a million knots. And you've heard this story 1 bazillion times.
Right.
You've heard this story from everybody. You've heard the story from Joe Rogan. You've heard the story from Anthony Bourdain. You've heard the story from everybody, from Jocko Willink. You've heard this story time and time and time again. I stepped on the mat. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought that I was big. I thought that I was strong. I thought that I could outsmart these guys. And the little 140-pound guy, who had, probably 35 years on me, turned me into a pretzel, 18 times in 4 minutes. There was nothing I could do to stop him. There was nothing I could do to solve the problem. There was nothing I could do. Why is this skinny little guy whipping my ass? I'll be back next week. And
Right. That's about it.
right. and everybody tells that story, right? Everybody tells that story. That's everybody's introduction to jiu-jitsu. Why did that skinny old man,
undersized person,
just whoop my ass? And so what happened is my son and I made a deal, and since he was very young, we made deals, and a deal's a deal. Right. And so he wanted the stuff. He saw the uniforms. He saw the patch. He saw the belts. He was in, right? Mm-hmm. He saw the little card with his picture and his name on it. It all seemed very official to him. Right. And so I said, okay, so here's the deal. If we join this thing, we'll join right now, and I'll go get you all the stuff. I'll go get you all the stuff. And, but if we sign up, we do this until I'm sick of it, not until you can't wake up at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And he agreed. So we went and got all this stuff. And at this point, I'd been sober 10 years. I'd been married 7, and so, okay, so off we go. And so we start training jiu-jitsu every week. And some of the guys in this class were training in other places during the week. They had found a bunch of spots around town that they could go train for free, like 1 day a week. Mm-hmm. And there was this place, I think I even brought you to Atwater Grappling, which was in Atwater Baptist Church. It was in an attic of a church, and I got invited, and it was this crazy, this Shark Tank. It was a no-gi, although you could bring a gi, it didn't matter, but it was this Shark Tank. Right. And guys would show up there on Wednesday night. The youth pastor trained jiu-jitsu, and he had a bunch of at-risk kids. So he's like, I want to teach these guys boxing and jiu-jitsu and get them going. And so he started this program up in the youth room. And they brought in mats, and they had, boxing equipment, they had weightlifting equipment, they had all this stuff. And this guy who knew he was a student of Gokors and Rodrigo Dillig, you may even know him. But so he brought in a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys, and he knew people in Pasadena. And so there was this group that was showing up and training every Wednesday evening. And it was no gi, and we would have people show up. Eventually all the church kids stopped coming, but this group of guys and some women showed up very, very consistently every single Wednesday. And there were people who would show up, and we had like advanced high-level black belts showing up. We had people who heard about this thing, and it was their first day, and they didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu at all. And so you get on the mats, and you shake hands, and you go. And they just set a 4-minute round timer, and you just rolled and rolled for 4 hours. You just rolled, and whether it was your first day or you were a high-level competitor, like you rolled with the guy in front of you, and that's who it was. And everybody was super cool. It became very obvious what your skill level was real quick. And just everybody just kind of met each other just beyond the level of your level. Everybody met me just beyond my level.
Right.
Nobody was given any gifts, but they weren't just like smashing on me, making it not fun. I was able to improve. So I began improving, and I started, and I looked at a tournament, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a tournament. And so my first tournament, I'm still a big guy, and so I joined this tournament, and my competitor's like over 300 pounds, 6 feet, because I'm up in a big, open
big boy bracket,
open weight division. And I'm like staring up at this dude, and we go, and 6 minutes later, I got a ref holding my hand in the air, and I loved it.
So you won your first match?
I won my first tournament. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
First match. And that's where like the drive kind of kicked in, and so I liked competing. I really enjoyed competing, and so I started competing. I signed up for another tournament like immediately, and it had a question on it. It had spaces on the thing to fill out, academy and rank. I'm like, oh, I suppose I need an academy, and I suppose I need a rank, because I was taking Japanese jiu-jitsu. I was taking Aki jiu-jitsu at Villa Park in Pasadena. It was just a little community program. It wasn't anything.
Right.
It wasn't even Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The guy who was teaching it just loved the ground game, so he focused on that.
Okay.
And so I was training with these other guys, and then I went over to M3 Fight and Fitness in Montrose.
Okay.
And so I started competing really, really, really heavily, and what I did is I entered a bunch of tournaments, and over the course of a year, I entered tournaments at a lower weight bracket every single tournament, and paid for it. I just paid. I paid the money, and the deal, because a deal's a deal. The deal I made with myself is if you don't make weight, you don't compete. Like, you don't get to change your weight brackets. You don't get to keep an eye on the deadline. If you don't make weight, you don't compete. And I wasn't going to train this hard and work this hard to not compete. And so I just kept dropping losing weight brackets. And, I got down to, 176.
Wow.
I was smooth middleweight at Gracie Nationals that year.
Wow. And then that's when we ran into each other.
That's when we ran into each other. I met Kurt, and he told me about Warriors Club. For whatever reason, you weren't there that day. You were watching somebody else compete. You were doing something else. And they invited me to Warriors Club over in Burbank. And I showed up, and we got introduced, and I smashed all your guys.
Right. Kirk still runs like an open mat at his garage. And
Does
stuff
he?
Like that. Yeah.
I love that guy.
I know. I need to make it over there.
Yeah. So in my recovery process, I began working with drug addicts and alcoholics, and really fell in love with doing it, and watching the light come on in people's eyes, and watching lives get rebuilt. And I've been doing, coaching in that arena for a long time now. And then I got into jiu-jitsu, and I started coaching teams in tournaments, because Dave's gonna be at the tournament. Hey Dave, can you coach the white belts? Hey, sure, no problem. And I would organize the teams to go out, and I would do whatever. Danny Vaughn would come out and coach, and every tournament, all the big ones, every little chicken shit tournament. You were at the higher grounds. Where my son compete.
Was that his first one?
That was his first tournament. First tournament, and no, it was great. So, yeah, and so I ended up just losing a ton of weight through jiu-jitsu, through just controlled diet, and I was getting a lot of exercise, and
now in this new realm that you exist in with coaching, counseling, you were saying that you really draw a lot of it from coaching the guys in jiu-jitsu at tournaments, instructing them, telling them where to go, kind of thing, giving them pointers. And you've been able to translate that into your life, or mixing your life experiences of hitting rock bottom, and now guiding folks that maybe you see are walking down the same path. And you have a knack for it. At what point did you step out on faith and leave this world that, man, you've been a part of since you were a kid, as far as, busing, cooking, food?
Right.
That's definitely stepping out of a comfort zone, you would think.
Right.
So how have you been able to navigate that whole transition, and what is it that you do? What are you about?
I am a life coach. I'm a transformation and empowerment coach. Through years of working with drug addicts and alcoholics in 12-step recovery, I've worked with a lot of worked with a lot of men and women. I've spent a lot of time helping men and women rebuild lives, reinvent themselves, and remake their lives. I've been doing it for a long time, in the realm of recovery. As I got into jiu-jitsu, later I got into Tough Mudders and Spartan races and obstacle course racing, and I really love that. And what I found is that ground level service to other human beings was what I was put on this earth to do. My experience in high-end kitchens, my experience in high-level kitchens has allowed me to really understand what it is to perform at a high level, to really understand what it is to maintain very, very high-level performance. My own athletic journey has taught me a lot about discipline, a lot about perseverance, a lot about tenacity, and I've been able to take all of that, including creating systems for success, and developing a lot of my own sort of beliefs around how to create success and how to create a really amazing transformation in people's lives. I have a lot of really great tools that I've learned from mentors over the years. I've had coaches over the years. Look, everybody performing at an elite level has a coach. Everybody. Athletes, musicians, actors, singers, politicians, businessmen, everybody has a coach, okay? A coach is just someone who knows you, who is on board with the mission, who is on board with the vision, who actually believes in you more than you do, and is 100% willing to hurt your feelings to help you achieve the goal that you said was your goal, right? A coach, I'm not a therapist. I'm not anything. I don't psychoanalyze anybody. We talk about where you are, where you want to be. We reverse engineer where you want to be. We create waypoints and goal points, measurable points along the way. And I hold people accountable for doing the things that they say they want to do. In that process, I incorporate some spiritual discipline, some spiritual practice, and not religious. I really don't care what you believe. What you believe is irrelevant to me. I'm not a religious guy. I'm a spiritual guy. But if you take any life at all and you add daily inquiry, a daily practice of looking at your previous day, planning your day, taking a good look at who you are today, where you're going today, what you want today. You add some meditation, you add journaling, you add prayer. If you do nothing else but that, your life is fixing to get taken to a new level, period. You add spiritual discipline to your life, you're going to get taken to a new place, regardless of whether you work with me as a coach or anybody else. And what I've been able to do, and it's been really amazing. In 2016, I decided that I wanted to coach full time. After having, I've been coaching non-professionally for a long time. Then I got into professional coaching and really, really loved it. In 2016, I decided that I was going to make the transition. It was big. It was scary. I hired a coach, built a website, built a business, did all of that. And June 15th of 2017 was my last day of a 30-year culinary career, and I am coaching full time. I have a pretty good social media presence right now. I absolutely love it. It is absolutely what I was put on this earth to do. And everything that I experienced, both the glory and the pain, everything that I have experienced up to this moment makes me good at what I do, makes me understanding, makes me compassionate, and allows me to understand that we're all coming from where we're coming from. And once we can see that, once I can see that if I don't believe that absolutely everybody is doing the best they can with what they have in this moment, then I am not doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. You know, and to be able to meet people just like Atwater Grappling, if I can meet people where they are and be a guide for them and be a mentor for them to get there where they want to be, regardless of I want to increase my earning capacity, I want to have a better relationship with my wife, I want to be a better father, I want to be a better cook, I want to be a better jiu-jitsu competitor, whatever it is that is, whatever it is your goal is. I want to change careers. I'm miserable in my marriage. I want to make 5 times what I make right now. Done. No problem. Let's talk about it. We reverse engineer your goals, set up waypoints and measurable points along the way, and then hold you accountable for doing what is required to do that. You can have literally anything you want.
Now, some of these activities that you do, in fact, this is why I feel I'm endeared towards you, is because there is a lot of action in your life. I mean, in the window that I've known you, which is, man, we're going on, I think, around 5 years now, roughly. But it's been filled with action on your end. You know, the way you sign up for the jiu-jitsu tournaments, I'm going to sign up one weight division lower. That's aggressive. I love things like that. People of action resonate with me, probably to a fault, because sometimes I'm a leap first, look later kind of guy. Sometimes it gets my ass into a little bit of trouble from time to time, but it's all in the vein of let's go, let's just get it done. If we don't have it all figured out, let's figure it out along the way, kind of thing. And, again, it bites me in the ass, but that's one thing I've always respected about you. And then one of the things that you kind of start on your own, and I don't know if you use this as one of the coaching tools, is Dawn Patrol.
Oh, right.
Dawn Patrol. I love that. You're up early in the morning, Saturday mornings, up before the sun wakes up. We'll meet at the top of the lake, and then we take that hike up. And that's where I remember both of us had the discussion of you embarking on your new life coach profession.
Right.
Me talking about this podcast. It was, in essence, not necessarily born, but vetted through those Dawn Patrol sessions.
I remember that was great.
To where it's, man, you're up in the morning again, before the sun. We get that 5-mile hike in. It's about 5 miles, yeah?
Yeah, it's 5.8, car door to car door. Yeah. 1,500 feet of elevation gain. It's a gnarly little hike. It's a little ass kicker of a hike, and it's great to do. And I've incorporated some meditation up at the top. When I do it these days, I always do a meditation at the top, and I live stream a meditation from the top of that hill.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you take some of the people that you've accepted to work with under your wing? Do they join you for Dawn Patrol, or it's not necessarily fit in for people's schedule? Or
no, you know what? It's an open invitation.
Right.
Anybody's welcome. As a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, one of my clients. I mean, most of my clients are in the continental United States, but I have clients in New Zealand. I have clients all over the world, because we meet in the online space. I use we teleconference, we video conference, which means I can have I have clients all over the world. And one of my clients was out here a few weeks ago, and she ended up doing the hike with me.
Oh, she did Dawn Patrol.
She did the Dawn Patrol, and it was tough for her. It was really, really tough, and she went back home and she told her physical therapist, and she told her naturopath that she did this hike with me, and they were both blown away. So yeah, it's something I do. It's at the top of lake in Pasadena. It's the Sam Merrill Trailhead, where we're going to Echo Mountain. We start at 6 a.m. and I do it as often as I am in town.
Right. And then the good thing about that is by the time we're done, because we get out there at a pretty good clip. You know, we're up, we're down. And by the time we're done, you know, people are just waking up. People are just getting their weekend started. Meanwhile, we got in our work, and that's always a cool thing. But then Sunday mornings, it doesn't end there. Sunday mornings, you have a different version of Dawn Patrol where you have a meeting with Big Blue.
Right.
And you introduce, you have Big Blue speak to the masses, which I get a kick out of, you know, tuning into myself on your social media feed.
It's the best. I go out to every morning by 7:30 in the morning. I'm out on the beach in Venice, and it's been something I've been doing for a long time, and I started live streaming it. Wow, it's been almost a year now that I've started live streaming it. And
really, it seems like it's been longer than that you've been streaming those, or is it pretty much a commitment to do it consistently?
Yeah, no, I've been doing my daily broadcast for just over a year now, for just over a year, and I started the Dawn Patrol a little bit later, and you know, I go out and I walk into the ocean and I meditate, and rain or shine, at about 8 a.m. On Sunday mornings, I go walking into the ocean and I meditate, and some mornings it's cold and awful and dreadful, and meditation's been a real game changer for me. Meditation has made a huge difference, and when you have to overcome physical discomfort in order to meditate, the effect is pretty significant. The effect is pretty powerful. What you get is a different type of experience than if you sit in your living room, you know, and you know, cross your legs and close your eyes. It's a different experience. It is a very, very powerful experience when you walk into something as powerful as the Pacific Ocean,
which is Big Blue, by the way.
Which is Big Blue. That's Big Blue. That's the big Pacific Ocean. That's you want to have a conversation about God. That's what I'm talking about. You know, I'm talking about whatever that big deal is, man. That is a powerful body of water, and you know, it's certainly more powerful than me. And
man, that's a great point. I mean, if you really just step into that arena and you think about it, you know, there you are on the edge of the land, and where the land meets ocean, and yeah, just standing in it, and you contemplate what that ocean represents, and it's like, holy hell, this thing could just swallow us all up. You know, it's almost like we're one natural catastrophe away from this ocean could swallow us up, and it has. I mean, civilizations, whatever, but it's just what it represents, the powerful ocean and what we are to that, and to really, I guess, put however big you feel you are, put in a perspective of what your problems are and your goals and how you choose to pursue them. It's really I guess a nice reset.
It's great
if gone about correctly, or correctly what's correct, but if gone about with a sense, a purpose.
Yeah, with intent, with intent, and intent is everything. You know, yeah, no, I mean that. You know, our human history has shown us that absolutely every time somebody does battle with the Pacific Ocean, they lose.
Yeah, they lose.
you don't.
Nature's undefeated.
You do not win. Yeah, you do not win against nature, and you want to go up against something like Big Blue, you're going to lose every single time, and you don't have to fight it. You know, you get to walk in and you can connect. You know, and just like the stars, and just like you know whatever religious beliefs you have the opportunity to connect without doing battle. You know, and you have the opportunity to really connect, and that's what we as humans really, really need. It's what we crave. It's that connection. It's what you and I found, you know, the first time we met, and we were able to connect. You know, we were able to connect through a friend, and then we were able to connect on the level of jiu-jitsu, and we were able to connect on the level of taking like really bold, kind of savage action. You know, really strong leaps. We were able to connect on like level after level after level after level, and our friendship's been real important to me. I got to watch you get your black belt, and I got to be there for a lot of that cool stuff, and see you open up Warriors Club in its new location. It's been very cool. But humans need connection.
Right. And through that connection, what's kind of been cool that is just dawning on me right now, here we are sitting here holding each other accountable for those conversations of Dawn Patrol.
Right.
It's like, here's conversations with cool people, and here you are deep into your coaching now. It's like, here we are. We've done it. I mean, there's still so it's not like we're living the great life, but we are living a great life.
For sure.
And but we're holding ourselves accountable, and here we are, doing it.
And this is where having someone in your life who's familiar with the vision, who's familiar with the mission, and understands you at a pretty good level, someone you're willing to be honest with, is absolutely invaluable. And just like my clients make that financial investment, you've made an investment in yourself, you've made an investment in me, through showing up at, I tell everybody the toughest part of that hike is, getting out of bed at 5 a.m. on a Saturday, man.
True story.
That is the toughest part of that whole hike. And that's a tough hike, but the toughest part of that hike is getting out of bed at 5 a.m. on a Saturday when you don't have to, because you don't.
Right.
You do it because you want to.
So, Dave, I need some coaching in my life. There are some goals I want to accomplish. What can I expect to bring you on board on Team Jimbo Nice here, and how does that journey look like? What does it look like working with you? What
it looks like is you get a hold of me through email, through social media, through my cell phone. I think is on my Facebook page. Call me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot you a link to my scheduler. Google knows my schedule way, way better than I do. The reason that I got out of kitchens, the reason I got out of things was so that I could have a life that I wanted to live. And I spend a lot of time, surfing and eating tacos and having conversations with cool people. And like, this is what I do. This is my life. I'm not slogging it out on a line, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. That's not the life I wanted anymore. So I'll send you a link to my scheduler, and you're gonna book a phone call, and we're gonna call, and we're gonna talk anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes, and I really don't care, and the call is free, and we're gonna talk about who you are, what you're talking about, what your goals are, what your level of commitment is, why you want to achieve these goals. Because if your why isn't in place, then your goals are pointless. And if your why is not in alignment, then I can't help you. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a conversation, and right now I have two different offerings. I have a 3-month program and a 6-month program. We meet once a week generally on Zoom. Which is it's like Skype, only it's a little bit more stable. It's a great platform. I meet people all over the world on it. It's recordable. It works good. So you have a copy of the sessions, and we meet for either 3 months or 6 months. I'll make a recommendation. You can choose either one you want, and we meet the first 3 weeks of every month. The reason we only meet the first 3 weeks of every month and not every month or not every week is because of a burnout factor. First off, you stop listening to me, I stop listening to you. Now we're just talking about the same thing over and over again, week after week. Nobody's listening to anybody, nobody's growing. Okay. The other reason is exactly what I said. I take the last week of every month off. That's the life that I want to live. That is the life that I get to live, because that is the life that I have designed for myself. That is the life that I have set up for myself. And it's the proof of concept that you can too, that your life can look any way you want it to look. You can make whatever amount of money you want to make. Your life can look any way you want it to look. All you got to do is build it. Mm-hmm. That's it. If you believe it, it can happen. It can be built. It can be reverse engineered. and I've seen the craziest shit happen. Like I've seen humans come straight out of rehab within the first 3-4 months of sobriety, decide they're going to be doctors, and then go do that. Right? Like, I mean, this was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, a month ago. This was a junkie coming out of a rehab, going, yeah, I think I'm going to be a doctor, and then I've watched them.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you've lived the life yourself.
That's the point. Is I know that anything can happen. I know that it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you start, and it doesn't matter where you want to go. Okay, those things are irrelevant. Come up with your why. Why do you want these things? I want to be of service to other humans. I want to serve powerfully. I want to see other people become the people that they want to be. I want to see people step into their own power and become the humans that they were born to be. That's my why. It drives me every single day. That's what I want. And the people who work with me are committed to that. They are committed. They are enrolled. They are committed in their own vision. And I'm committed to them, but it takes work. It's you don't show up on these calls and it's a pleasant conversation once a week and then your life improves. If you are willing to put in the work that is required, if you are willing to be coached, if you are willing to be teachable and do the work, because just like jiu-jitsu, you will never get the benefits of the work that you didn't do. You will never reap the rewards from the work that you didn't do. If you want it, you do the work. If you do the work, you get the stuff. It always works that way. Yeah. It never works any other way.
Yeah, and there is a saying in jiu-jitsu that the mats don't lie, and right. that it communicates that right there. You have to put in the work, and if you're getting mopped up, it doesn't matter if you've been coming for 5 years. It's like the mats are going to tell you where you're lacking. Yeah, you may be a part of that academy for 5 years, but what kind of work are you putting in when you show up to the mats? Because after 5 years, there's no reason why you should continually being given your ass in
right.
each training session. It's going to tell on you.
Right. Are you chatting during drilling?
Right.
Are you drilling diligently? Are you drilling fast or are you drilling slow and deliberate? Where's your intent?
Right.
And the big thing that I always say, and if you know anything about me, you know this is coming. Clarity is everything. And we're going to talk about clarity. We're going to ask, I'm going to ask you where you are right now. I'm going to ask some very pointy questions about the practices in your life. If what you want to do is get better at jiu-jitsu, I'm going to ask you some very pointy questions about the way you practice, about the intent that you set when you walk through the door, about the way you tie your belt, about the way you bow onto the mat, and about the way you do absolutely every piece of your practice from the minute you walk in the door to the minute you walk out. And if every piece isn't done with intent, well, then you didn't do it all the way.
Wasted motion.
Yeah.
Well, so Google Scheduler is your best friend. That's how I.
Google Scheduler is indeed my best friend. Because that I don't pay attention to my schedule.
Right.
I really don't. I wake up in the morning and after I go to the gym and after I do my meditation, I do my writing, I connect with the humans that I like to connect with in the morning, then I open up my phone, I swipe over to my schedule, and I'm like, okay, well, this is what we're doing today. And if there's nothing there, then I go surfing.
Wow. That's a good life.
That's a great life.
That's a great life. And you were telling me before we got started, your schedule is pretty packed. So where are some of the places you're going to be, and how can people get a hold of you?
Like, you can find me, most easily you can find me on Facebook. Mm-hmm. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me at www.become-limitless. Become-limitless.com. There's a link to my scheduler. I have
and they can find all of your social media outlets through that website.
Okay. You can find the website through my social media. Okay. I do between 9 and 11 live broadcasts a week. 2 Dawn Patrol. I do the Daily Diesel lives. I have a group of 3 guys. We call ourselves Beyond the Storm. It's fathers and husbands and entrepreneurs just talking about like modern masculinity, like what it looks like to be a husband and a father and an entrepreneur in today's world.
So, are you just there for the men of today, or you take on all comers?
I take on men and women, and initially, I started out with I was a men's coach, and I got a lot of attention from women, and I had a few women really challenge me, and they go, "Look, I know you're a men's coach. You're going to coach me." And like I ended up having to go to my female mentors about it. I ended up going, "Look, I've set up this whole thing. I'm a men's coach. My identity is a men's coach. That's what I do." And I have this amazing female mentor, and she just looked at me and she's like, "Who told you got to decide? Who told you that you got to choose? Did somebody say that?
You're a men's coach?"
Yeah, did somebody say that you got to choose like where your message resonated, like with whom your message was heard, like where it landed? Did somebody tell you that you got to choose that? And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks, And she goes, "You will coach where you're needed. You will go where you're needed. You will and you will coach the people who resonate with you. You will coach the people who are in alignment with your message, because if they're not in alignment with your message, they're not coming to you." Right? There's no competition in this space, right? If you don't like what I have to say, then you're not going to come to me. If you love what I have to say, then nobody else is going to work for you.
So men, women, boys, girls of all ages.
Yep.
What is it? www.become-limitless.
Become-limitless.com. I mean, you can Google Become Limitless Life Coaching, and I come up.
Okay.
And you can go to Facebook, Dave Gieselman, Become_Limitless on Instagram. I think it's the same on Dave G_Limitless on Instagram and Twitter. And you catch me on my live streams. As a matter of fact, this week I have a very, very special guest. I have for my Live from the Hive special interview show, I have from Warriors Club and Jiu-Jitsu Magazine, I have Jim Lawson talking about what it looks like to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Los Angeles these days.
Yeah, it's a twisted world.
It's a twisted world.
It's a twisted world.
It's a lot of fun, and right. you have a great story, and it'll be a lot of fun to have you on.
Cool. Well, I look forward to it. And people, that's Dave Gieselman, even though we call him Diesel, so don't get it confused with Diesel. That's just his nickname that we affectionately call him. All right, Diesel, it was good. It was great. Cool. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Love you, brother.